Welcome to Lucky Street Gallery, where we're having a retrospective of Richard Kemble, his creativity over the last 50 years. Come in. Richard is known for his woodcuts. Over 350 editions he did over a 40-year period. So we're starting with some of his monumental woodcuts. Here is a place for me with the rainbow, and it's just a statement. He did another version of this with 4 panels, which are 120 inches by 120 inches. It's a monumental piece, not big enough. Gallery isn't big enough to have it. And this gallery, in the retrospective, is featuring a series of Richard's windows that he did. This is his last creative output before he died. In 2004, he did a series of about 60 of these oil pastels with gold leaf windows. We're showing here about 20 of them. Others have been sold. Some of them are not in the exhibition. But each one is so beautifully executed. They're all 15 inches by 15 inches, the window being the gold leaf and the oil pastel. Let's pan over here. Some more. It's maybe with the window it's hard to see, but let's zoom in on a couple. The gold just pops as the light hits it. Lucky Street Gallery is where Richard had shown some of his things before he died, when the gallery was first opened. And now, 6 years after he passed away, this retrospective is focusing on about 70 of his pieces: woodcuts, oil pastels, and some oils on paper. Over here, we have a Key West series of landscapes, magical realism. The Key West sunsets, and Richard is known for having put lines through some of his pieces, which he thought of as being lines intersecting the panorama of the vista, whether it's a telephone wire or a line through a soccer field or a arc of light or a rainbow line. So this series of oil pastels were all inspired by Key West. Many of them are entitled From Key to Shining Key. A nice takeoff on Francis Scott Key's Sea to Shining Sea, but this is Key to Shining Key. The rest of the exhibition focuses on his woodcuts. Beautiful colors. He was often referred to as an artist that was inspired by the Fauve movement in France in the early 20th century. Fauve, or the wild beasts, were artists who broke from tradition and used colors that were not normally associated with the landscape, which Richard often did. He took colors that were not normally associated with the landscape and reinterpret them. But many of these soft ones reflected the sea, both here in Key West and his other home in Nantucket. Both of these places of his residence were islands, and his work was inspired by the sea surrounding. The sea and the light. Forager Coast, one of his very popular prints that's in many museum collections. We'll back up on that so you can see the whole thing. Has that big expanse of yellow, his sun or his moon, which were often included in his work, and then the pebbles in the water at the bottom. waiting for tomorrow, the magical trees and their trunks. Again, looking back, seeing the yellow ball of the sun, the moon. Let's go around the corner. We won't have reflections here, hopefully. These are 4 of his landscapes that he did in the 1980s. First one, At Peace with Time, very, very red, rosy sunrise. This is a smaller version of a big, huge big piece that he did. Below it, Another Perfect Day. Again, a magical moment of the sea, the beach, the dunes, the water. And again, as light would play on the white, on the water and the landscape, colors that you normally don't associate with the landscape are inspired by Richard to do in his woodcuts. Tides of Sand, very soft and gentle with his colors, showing some of the beach grass. And I believe this one is in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art. Another Season, look at purple trees. As the light would play on the trees, he saw purple, just as prisms would be magical to the landscape. There's a series of just a few of his stone series that he did periodically through his career. Using inks that were left at the end of the day from printing, he would do oils on paper. Some of these inks would resist one another and therefore create textures. Textures of rocks, lichens, mosses, and what you would find in the forest from deciduous trees and all those fragments on the surface of the ground. Dunes is one of his monumental works that he did using many panels. This is a series of 4. He called it a tetralogy, using the Greek for tetra, for 4. It's a set of 4 pieces that all integrate with each other, and yet each one is a work of its own. And as you can see, dunes, that's exactly what they are, inspired by the dunes along the ocean, wherever that might be. It was no particular place. It was anywhere that you want to be, where there was sand, water, sea, sky, and sometimes silence. We also showing in the exhibition some photographs that were included in Franz Geierhaus's book, The Creative Act, which was published in the early 70s, in which Richard had a featured chapter. And these photographs, done by the German photographer Brigitte Helgoth, show how his process of creating woodcuts was done, different than the normal woodcut technique. A few of the other little ones, A Day in June, was for a wedding invitation. Next to it, At Dusk, only 10 by 12, but again, the water, the dunes. Below it, Maidenhair, very simple. The leaves of Maidenhair fern. Nature's Rainbow was one of his first woodcuts that he did, really using colors that are not associated with the landscape. As he referred to it, he said, this is like the purple mountain's majesty, and he did and use purple mountains, red on the ground, magic colors for the trees. Soft colors in Mauchamp. Mauchamp was the god of fog in Nantucket, and this shows you the misty moors when the fog would be there with a path to the sea. After sunset, how the sand and the dunes all turn red as the sun would sink at the end of the day. I know a tree beyond the bend ahead, a woodcut from 1975 using a circular form, not too often done by artists. But it shows you the landscape, the textures of the sand, which he later incorporated in some of his pre-Columbian work. And finally, a piece that is called Water, a piece that was discovered after Richard died. He had done this whole edition when he was in Japan in the early 80s. They were packed away and found in Nantucket, and I think one of his great woodcuts. Water, rocks, the stream from where, use your imagination. Richard's art of 50 years, we hope is enjoyed, and this will be discovered. It still has a lot to be discovered. So we hope you enjoyed your little visit to Lucky Street Gallery here in Key West, where we're trying to give you an overview of Richard Kemble, born in 1932, passed away in 2007, and yet his art will live on forever. Please enjoy your visit. Also, a new book which has been done on Richard Kemble, a retrospective, 160 pages by George Korn and Thomas Livingston. George was Richard's partner for 42 years, and subsequently Thomas, his new partner, and he have created a wonderful book showing Richard at work, but also so many wonderful images that are in here. Some of them are in the gallery. None of his sculpture is here in this exhibition. None of his pre-Columbian work is included here. As I said, he's an artist. Hopefully you will continue to discover his work. One of the quotes made by Monroe Wheeler, one of Richard's friends, who was the director of exhibitions at the Museum of Modern Art in New York in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, said, "Richard Kemble is a colorist on a par with the best of the Fauves." I think we just proved that. Enjoy.